if you are apostates from the whole Trump agenda because of your disagreement about this one particular issue, and you feel that he betrayed you because you categorize it a forever or endless war, which he promised to avoid, then you're nullifying the entire agenda. And what is the alternative? A Kamala Harris agenda? I don't know. An Eric Swalwell agenda? A Gavin Newsom agenda? That's antithetical to everything these people have stood for.
Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene. The left is celebrating what it's calling the MAGA Civil War, and the right is eating it up. But before anyone declares a realignment, there's a harder question worth asking. What exactly is the beef? Does it hold up analytically? And what happens to the broader agenda if this fracture actually sticks? That's what this video is going to examine.
The left is making quite a deal of attention to what they call the anti-MAGA right. That is, former staunch supporters of Donald Trump that have now parted ways with him. And the names that they fixate on, the left, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who resigned from Congress after a big fight with Donald Trump over the Epstein files and the Iraq War. Tucker Carlson, the former Fox news host, and now has become a fierce Trump critic. Megyn Kelly, who had a very successful Fox show herself and then went to NBC and now has a very successful podcast. And she seems to have parted ways with Donald Trump over the same issues as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson. Then, of course, Joe Rogan has expressed disappointment. Perhaps he is now not in the MAGA fold. Candace Owens has been a virulent critic. Steve Bannon, I don't know what his status is, but there's a group of people. And then further to the right, of course, there's the Groypers and Nick Fuentes and all those people. But what was their beef? The first thing that seems to really bother them is the current war. I shouldn't say the first thing. The first thing that bothered some of them was the summer 2025 attack by the United States for about 25 hours on the nuclear facilities in Iran. It was a one-off. Tucker Carlson said this was unnecessary. It could lead to World War III. It didn't. It did retard the progression of nuclear acquisition. Then new information came in that they had much more ballistic missiles than had been anticipated, and there may have been other areas where they had stored nuclear material. So then that reopened negotiations this year to remove those peacefully. They didn't work, and so then the United States began at the end of February bombing, and now we're in the 6th week, and they feel that that is a forever war and an endless war. But it's a very funny forever war, isn't it? I mean, if you look at it, there's been tragically 13 Americans killed, but it's not 4,000 or 5,000 as we've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan. 7,000 total, perhaps another 20,000 casualties. It's an air war, almost exclusively an air war, except for the rescue of the pilot. And it's completely asymmetrical. We have destroyed, as people have said, their Navy except for their patrol boats, which I think will be destroyed shortly if they try to interrupt traffic any further in the Strait. We've destroyed their Air Force. We've destroyed their missile defense. We've taken out the first and second tier of the Islamic Republican Guard Corps, the regular army, the theocrats, and even some of the politicians. So their command and control is in disarray, and we have suffered really no major downfall other than politics. The future of that war is entirely political. I mean, the United States is at liberty to do what they want, whatever the military feels is necessary to disarm Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and to stop its ballistic missile potential. But it's a political question, just a question of what's the effect on the world economy, what's the effect on the American economy, and more importantly, how does that affect the midterms and the future of the Trump presidency? But people are conflating those and suggest that militarily it's a defeat. That's absurd.
Let's be precise about what this rupture actually is, because the way it's being described in media coverage on both sides is doing more to obscure the reality than explain it. The names on the list are real. Tucker Carlson has been a fierce critic of the Iran campaign. Megyn Kelly has expressed sharp disagreement. Joe Rogan has signaled disappointment. Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned from Congress after a fight that combined the Epstein files and the Iran war into a single breaking point. Candace Owens has been consistently hostile. The left has assembled this roster into a narrative. The MAGA coalition is fracturing. Trump's base is abandoning him. The movement is in crisis. But look at what the actual complaint is. The core grievance, stripped of the emotional overlay, is this. Trump initiated military action against Iran's nuclear facilities in the summer of 2025, then expanded that campaign in late February into a sustained bombing operation now in its 6th week. And a group of right-aligned commentators have decided this constitutes a forever war, the kind of open-ended, ground troop, nation-building catastrophe that defined Iraq and Afghanistan, and that Trump explicitly campaigned against. That's the argument. Now examine whether it holds. The casualty comparison alone is instructive. 13 Americans killed in 6 weeks of an almost entirely air-based campaign. Iraq and Afghanistan combined killed over 7,000 Americans and produced another 20,000 casualties, over the course of 2 decades of ground occupation in hostile terrain, fighting door-to-door in cities like Fallujah and in villages in Helmand Province where nobody could tell friend from enemy. The Iran campaign has no ground component except a single pilot rescue. It is operating from altitude, using American technological and air superiority to destroy a military infrastructure without putting American troops into a ground war on jihadist terms. Calling that a forever war requires ignoring what a forever war actually looks like, and these commentators were all vocal during the wars that actually fit that description. The military picture described in the source segment is also worth sitting with, because it directly undercuts the endless war framing. Iran's navy has been effectively destroyed, except for patrol boats that will be eliminated if they interfere with straight traffic. Their air force is gone. Their missile defense is gone. The first and second tier of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has been taken out, along with regular army leadership and theocratic figures. Their command and control is in disarray. This is not a stalemate. This is not a quagmire. By any conventional military measure, this is a dominant and accelerating degradation of an adversary's warfighting capacity, achieved with historically low American casualties and no ground occupation. The honest question the critics should be answering is, what is the alternative? Tucker Carlson's position, stated clearly, is that the summer 2025 nuclear strike was unnecessary and risked World War III. It didn't start World War III. It set back Iran's nuclear timeline. New intelligence then revealed additional ballistic missile stockpiles and potential undisclosed nuclear material storage, which reopened negotiations that subsequently failed, which led to the February campaign. The causal chain is clear. The critics are not engaging with that chain. They're expressing a prior preference for non-intervention and retrofitting the facts to it. The forever war label is the tell. It's an emotional category borrowed from the genuine and legitimate critique of Iraq and Afghanistan wars that had no defined objectives, no exit conditions, no measurable endpoint. This campaign has explicit objectives that have been publicly stated and are being systematically achieved. That's the opposite of a forever war. Applying the label anyway suggests the criticism is not primarily analytical, it is personal or ideological, or driven by something other than a close reading of what is actually happening on the ground. And the left's excitement about this fracture is itself revealing. They are amplifying Carlson and Kelly and Rogan not because they share their foreign policy views, they manifestly don't, but because internal right-wing conflict is useful to them. The critics are being used as instruments of a political narrative that serves interests directly opposed to their own stated positions on every other issue. That dynamic is worth naming clearly.
Trump tweeted that if Iran had not met these conditions and were not going to negotiate, then he would destroy their civilization. It was pretty poorly worded. And they felt that this was beneath him, beneath the United States. They joined the left in saying that this was outrageous. The left took him literally, not figuratively. But I don't think anybody believed he meant all of the Iranian people. We know that because, of course, as I had said earlier, no president has avoided dual-use civilian targets as much as Trump. We didn't do it in World War II. We hit every civilian target we could, from power plants to highways to water facilities to oil production in Germany and Japan. We did it again in Korea. We did it certainly in Vietnam. We took out all the bridges in the Danube in the '99 bombing under Clinton. And of course, we knocked out the power grid of Belgrade, 1.5 million people several times. We did the same thing in Libya. We denied we did it, but we hit civilian ships, we hit port facilities, we hit TV stations. Trump hasn't done that except for one bridge. So he didn't really, his record shows that he doesn't believe he wants to destroy the civilization. In fact, it's just the opposite. And I think his critics know that, or he wouldn't have said help is on the way. Help is on the way. The whole subtext of this entire campaign is, while regime change is not the primary agenda, he hopes that by weakening and humiliating this theocracy, then the people will rise up. And that's why he's selected targets that would allow them to rise up and not hurt the people. So was it an overstatement? Yes. But they should know better what he meant. Of course he did, because his deeds prove what he meant. So what's going on here? I think part of the problem is in the intimacy that some people on the right have cultivated and developed with Trump. In other words, if you're going to campaign with Trump, if you're going to be a regular visitor at Mar-a-Lago with Trump, if you're going to be an intimate of the family, and if you're going to work with him and you're a news person, then you feel it's apparently Steve Bannon felt that way. Maybe Tucker feels that way. Maybe Megan feels that way. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene felt that way. But if you feel that you have a special relationship, then you feel downcast or betrayed because you're not only your president, but your friend and associate that you'd helped didn't quite agree with you. But it's always better to have some distance so you can be empirical. And if you're empirical, then the question is, what's the alternative to Donald Trump's MAGA agenda? Because if you look at the border, it's closed. If you look at illegal immigration, he has deported 500,000 criminals. Another million have self-deported, and he's in the process of probably finishing another 500,000 deportees. We should have 2 million. We've never done that before. If you look at energy right now, the United States has never produced so much oil and gas, and we're right on the verge of a nuclear energy renaissance, and we're going in Alaska, we're going offshore, we're trying to get more oil and gas in California. For all practical purposes, at least for now, DEI is dead. No other president would have done that. This reverse racism or this tribal chauvinism that has so plagued the nation, Donald Trump ended that. He has put the universities on notice that they cannot continually defy civil rights laws and Supreme Court decisions. No one did that before. As far as transgenderism, they're on the defensive now. The idea that biological men will dominate female sports and men with biological male characteristics will dress among women is over. So what I'm getting at is this. All of these critics agree with what Donald Trump has done on 80% of the issues. At least their record says they do. So why, on one particular issue in which you disagree, and it's very doubtful that you can categorize this a forever or endless war. It's much more in the flavor of the Venezuela, the Soleimani, the Baghdadi, the ISIS bombing. It is not anything near fighting house to house in Fallujah or going into hostile villages in Helmand province. We're not on the ground. We're not fighting on the jihadist turf. We're using our strength, air power, and a distance from to mitigate casualties and inflict greater damage on the theocracy. It's not a forever endless war, and they know that. So if you are apostates from the whole Trump agenda because of your disagreement about this one a particular issue, and you feel that he betrayed you because you categorize it a forever or endless war, which he promised to avoid, then you're nullifying the entire agenda. And what is the alternative? A Kamala Harris agenda? I don't know. An Eric Swalwell agenda? A Gavin Newsom agenda? That's antithetical to everything these people have stood for and lobbied for and advanced for. And so if you sit out the midterms, or you figuratively or in your advocacy, if you sit out or you oppose Trump, de facto, whether you know it or not, you are favoring the alternate agenda, and that agenda is something that, at least in your recent positions, that you have adamantly opposed.
The "destroy their civilization" tweet is the hinge point of this entire argument, and it's worth being precise about what it actually demonstrates. The critics, joined by the left, took the statement literally. Trump threatened genocide. He threatened the Iranian people. He revealed his true intent. But here is the evidentiary problem with that reading. His conduct throughout the campaign directly contradicts it. No president in recent memory has been more restrained on dual-use civilian targeting. Clinton took out the Belgrade power grid, a city of 1.5 million people, repeatedly during the Serbian campaign. Obama shut down Libyan television stations, hit port facilities, struck civilian ships, then denied doing it. Trump hit one bridge. He has consistently avoided the infrastructure targeting that would harm the Iranian population directly, while hitting the military and theocratic command structure that rules them. That is not the behavior of someone who wants to destroy a civilization. That is the behavior of someone trying to collapse a government while leaving the people intact to replace it. Help is on the way. That phrase is the actual subtext of the campaign, and the critics know it because it was said publicly, explicitly, by the same president they're now accusing of warmongering. The targeting logic of this campaign only makes sense if regime change through internal uprising is the hoped-for endpoint. You don't carefully avoid civilian infrastructure if you want to destroy civilization. You do carefully avoid it if you want the population functional enough to overthrow the people running it. So the tweet was poorly worded. That is a fair criticism. What it is not is evidence of genocidal intent, and treating it as such, while ignoring 6 weeks of targeting restraint, is not honest analysis. It is motivated reasoning looking for rhetorical ammunition. Now to the larger question. What does apostasy on this one issue actually cost? The record on the broader agenda is the answer. The border is effectively closed. 500,000 criminal deportations executed, another million self-deported, more in progress. American oil and gas production at historic highs. Nuclear energy revival underway. DEI dismantled across federal institutions. Universities put on legal notice. Transgender policy reversed. These are not small things. These are the core commitments the commentators now in opposition spent years advocating for, and they are being delivered. The arithmetic is unforgiving. If you sit out the midterms or actively oppose Trump because you disagree with one military campaign that has produced 13 American casualties and is operationally succeeding, you are functionally supporting the return of an agenda that reverses every item on that list. That is the choice being made. The critics are entitled to make it, but they should be honest about what they're choosing, and so should the audiences following them.